Yuma Tsukumo is the protagonist of Yu-Gi-Oh! ZEXAL, one of my personal favorites and someone who had great character development over the course of the series. But like any character, he is not devoid of criticism, and in fact some people absolutely despise this character. So I'm gonna go over why I think he's a great character. So let's begin from the very beginning. Yuma is a fun-loving kid who always pushes himself to the limit despite the many failures he faces. And no matter how many times he fails, he doesn't let this deter him from succeeding, or at least trying to succeed. This is present in all aspects of his life, as we see in the very first episode Yuma failing several challenges. Some of the people around him think he's crazy because he keeps putting himself in these situations where he usually gets injured in some type of way, but Yuma himself says that he'll never stop. These challenges that he puts himself up for are his way of trying to high-five the sky, a term that he uses frequently to describe a great challenge. It's commonly used along with another phrase, feeling the flow, which is the way Yuma describes a feeling of being unstoppable, surrounding himself in an overwhelmingly positive mindset, in which he is capable of achieving anything, because as he states, when you're feeling the flow, there's no going back. I found this philosophy interesting from the very beginning. I always thought it was an interesting way to introduce his character, to have an outgoing philosophy so personal revealed at the very start. So he's in the right headspace, but what about his dueling skill? Well, unfortunately, it's not quite as good as his mindset. Yuma is a pretty bad duelist, but I find that to be an excellent starting point because we genuinely get to see him develop, evolve, and implement new strategies. And we do get to see just how far this positive mindset can take him because he is relentless in his goal to improve, always eager to learn, eager to duel the next person, and quite often seems to recognize and appreciate the skill of his opponents, relishing the challenge and enjoying trying to find a way through, trying to find a way to win. The version of Yuma at the start of the series is very fun, and I really like the energy that he gives off. It makes him both an interesting and likable character. But let's talk about how he changes as a character. Yuma is forced to mature after being given heavy responsibility through the introduction of Astral. Not only is he tasked with collecting all 100 number cards, but also knowing that losing a duel means losing Astral. This raises the stakes immensely and forces Yuma to make more calculated decisions, as before he was very impulsive and acted on emotion frequently, but later in the series he is forced to make more logical decisions. But this didn't happen overnight. For example, let's take when Yuma first met Astral. He was immediately untrusting and refused any help or advice from Astral, even if it was correct. Yuma was extremely stubborn in his decision making, which is a great way to show his childish nature. He even goes directly against what Astral says in episode 4, doing the exact opposite of what he's told. And interestingly, Astral actually manages to manipulate this in his favor. He realizes that Yuma isn't gonna listen to him and he's doing the opposite of whatever he's told. So to correct this, Astral tells him to do the exact opposite of what he really wants him to do, knowing that he's gonna do the opposite, which in reality is what Astral wanted him to do in the first place. I hope that kind of made sense and you get the gist of what I'm saying, but the point is Yuma doesn't stay this way forever, and it's the next step that he takes in maturity that makes him almost unstoppable. By taking more of Astral's advice and allowing him to help, he learns to learn better. So not only does he have a near boundless motivation to improve, but he can also find himself in this state of concentration and focus, and it gives him a lively energy, creating a great balance of logic and emotion. Yuma shows us that you should try your absolute best, give your all to something, and then if you do fail, so what? From failure, the only place to go is to improve. Yuma is constantly trying new things, always putting himself to the test, and this is the foundation for a growth mindset. And it's why he's able to improve so much and show so much progression. Yuma displays fear a lot more often towards the end of the series, and a reason for this is the fear of losing something, and his fear of loss becomes greater because there is so much more to lose. The scale of what he was losing at the start of the series was a deck, and by the end of it the fate of the universe lies in his hands. And through this we see a big change in Yuma. We see him start to implement something that he never did did before. Yuma starts to proceed with caution. When we're first introduced to Yuma, he charges into every challenge fearless, and it's all about high-fiving the sky and feeling the flow, being caught up in the adrenaline of trying something new. So even when he fails, he doesn't feel bad. But later in this series, he can't afford to be this careless. It went from losing is where learning takes place to losing isn't an option. This series does a great job of showing Yuma's maturity, and the person he is almost completely changes by the end. But something that's very important is that he keeps his core identity. He still wants to feel the flow and high-five the sky. He's still able to have fun even in the most tense situations. Take his duel against Alito for an example, which I do have a video on, by the way. So if you want to hear about that more in depth, you can go and check out that video. He's on the brink of defeat and his back is against the wall, and he finds a moment to smile, to enjoy what he's doing. This is also a great moment of progression because he's almost become too serious at this point. Astral questions him and looks at him as if he's crazy, in pure disbelief. But Yuma has had a lot of stress in his life, from literally being hunted down by kites, losing his friend Shark, later finding out he's a Baryon, making a new friend who he then finds out is a Baryon, and then finds out is an evil Baryon. To go into specifics, he betrayed his values and didn't stick to his word, which made Shark lose his respect for Yuma, but Yuma ends up losing anyway, making him feel humiliated. He's looking around every corner because he's literally being hunted down, and when he does eventually face this number hunter, he gets severely outclassed and is only saved by Kite having to leave. He's trying to make an effort to help people who don't want his help, frustrated at the unknown mysteries of his parents, coming face to face with people who know exactly what happened to his father, finally finding an ally in the midst of chaos who he believes he can confide in, someone who can ignite that childlike wonder in him, to then be manipulated, lied to, and betrayed. And through this new bond that he created with this stranger, he severed the ties he had created with Astral, leading Astral to no longer trust Yuma, since Yuma was too caring, too trusting, trying to protect his new friend, knowing that Astral wouldn't approve of his friend being a Baryon. And through this, Yuma learns a new lesson. I think this is the point in the series where Yuma realizes just how much he values Astral, as the two of them have learnt a lot from each other, and after they recover from this fallout, their bond is stronger than ever. The events that are put in Yuma's path force him to change and adapt, and it's impressive how he manages to push through these challenges via his power of will, and even more impressive that no matter what faces him and no matter how much he has to change and adapt to his situation, his core identity remains, his values remain, his character remains. If you made it this far, first of all, thanks for watching. Check out my channel to find other ZEXAL videos, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss one. Let me know in the comments what you think about Yuma Tsukumo.